Hi, everyone. Recently, it seems like there might be some potential changes coming to the Social Security program, especially in 2025. This can be a pretty complicated topic, and I get that it might feel confusing. So I just want to take a moment to break it down, share a little more, and point out the key things you should know. All right, so first off, there's this tension happening right now. On one side, you've got the promises made during the campaign by the president-elect, President Trump. And on the other side, you've got experts raising concerns about the future finances of the Social Security program. Basically, President Trump made some big promises, things that sound great, like changes that could help people in the short term. But experts are looking ahead and saying, wait a minute, if we do some of these things, it might create problems for the program's finances down the road. So it's like a balancing act, trying to keep the promises while making sure Social Security stays stable for the future. All right, so here's the deal. On one hand, there's this idea to get rid of taxes on Social Security benefits, tips, and even overtime pay. Now, that sounds amazing, right? I mean, who wouldn't love to keep more of their hard-earned money? It's an idea that's really appealing to a lot of people. But here's the thing. Experts are saying, hold on a minute. They're worried that if we make these changes, it could actually make things worse for Social Security, which is already in a tough spot financially. Right now, they're projecting that the program could run out of money by 2034, or maybe even sooner if these kinds of proposals go through. So, yeah, while these ideas sound great at first, they might end up creating even bigger problems down the road. It's like trying to fix one thing, but accidentally breaking something else that's even more important. That's what has people concerned. All right, let me explain this in a way that's easy to follow. So here's what's going on. Some members of the Republican Party are saying, wait a second, let's take another look at the data being used to predict Social Security's future. They're questioning whether the numbers we're relying on are actually accurate. They're worried that these projections might not fully reflect the reality of the situation. Now, this adds another layer to the conversation. On one side, you've got these big optimistic promises, like getting rid of taxes on benefits, tips, and overtime pay. That sounds great, right? But on the other side, experts are waving red flags, saying, hold on, the program's finances are already in trouble, and these changes could make it worse. It's almost like we're looking at two completely different pictures. One is hopeful and full of promises, while the other is more cautious and filled with warnings. And the thing is, for most of us, it's hard to know which one to trust. That's why it's so important to really pay attention to the details and think about how these choices could affect the long-term stability of Social Security. It's not just about what sounds good right now. It's about making sure the program is there for the future, too. All right, so here's the idea. Some people are saying that Trump's economic policies, like putting tariffs on imports or deporting undocumented immigrants, might actually help support Social Security. The thought behind this is pretty simple. Tariffs, which are taxes on goods coming into the country, could bring in more money for the government. At the same time, if you reduce the number of people using social services by deporting them, you might save money that could then be used for something like Social Security. Now, on paper, that might sound like a good plan, but here's where it gets tricky. Tariffs could bring in money, sure, but they might also raise the prices of things we all buy. Groceries, electronics, everyday stuff, and cutting spending on social services, that might save some money, but what happens to the people who actually rely on those services? It's a risky approach, and the results are hard to predict. Things might go well, or they might backfire completely. That's why people are saying this isn't as straightforward as it sounds. It's a gamble, and not everyone's sure it's worth the risk. All right, so here's something important to know about 2025. One specific change being planned is an increase in the maximum income that can be taxed for Social Security. Right now, the limit is $168,600, but that's going up to $176,100. Now, some people are saying, why stop there? They're suggesting raising the limit even higher, maybe to $300,000 or even $400,000 to bring in more money for the program. Sounds like a good way to get more funding, right? But here's where it gets tricky. Raising the limit like that raises questions about fairness. High-income earners might feel like they're being asked to pay more than their fair share. And let's not forget, President Biden has promised not to raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year. So this idea of raising the limit even higher brings up some real debates about who should carry the extra burden and whether it's the right move overall. It's definitely not as simple as it sounds. There's also something else to consider, the Social Security Fairness Act. This is a proposal aimed at eliminating rules that reduce benefits for people who earn pensions from public service jobs like teachers, firefighters, police officers, and other government workers. Now, on the surface, this sounds like a great change, especially since it could help around 2 million people who have been affected by these rules. But here's the concern. If more people start receiving their full benefits without a matching increase in revenue coming into the system, it could put even more pressure on Social Security, which is already facing financial challenges. So, while this change could bring relief to a lot of hardworking folks, it's also raising questions about how to balance the system's stability with fairness for those who've been shortchanged in the past. It's another tricky situation that highlights just how complex this whole issue is. All right, let me sum this up. When we talk about all these changes like potential tax cuts, economic policies, and the Social Security Fairness Act, you can really see how complex Social Security has become. It's not just a simple program. It's like trying to balance so many pieces at the same time. On one side, you have the needs of individuals. People want fairness, especially those who've worked hard in public service jobs like teachers, firefighters, and police officers. But then there's the bigger challenge, making sure the program stays sustainable over the long term. If we're not careful, some of these changes could end up causing more issues than they fix. And of course, there's the political side of things. Different groups have their own ideas about what's best, and sometimes it feels like these debates just keep going in circles. But here's the core of it. Social Security has been a lifeline for so many generations of Americans. It's supported families, retirees, and people in need during tough times. Our responsibility is to protect this program, not just for today, but for the future, for our kids, grandkids, and everyone who will depend on it someday. That's what I wanted to share with you in this video. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.